6:30. I'm going to bring this July 10th meeting of the planning board to order. We're going to start with a work session, looking at the proposed update to Chelmsford outdoor lighting bylaw. We were provided with a draft as well as a historical lighting bylaw by Kelly, who's taken this and run to the hills. And now in front of us, we also have today a list of the stakeholders that he provided us with since the last meeting. And then Chris also had some feedback, I think it was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So,
Work in progress.
work in progress.
Right, so Kelly PD, 117 Park Road. A nice dark end of town, actually. Show you. I go over to Sunny Meadow Farm and use my telescope, so some night we'll collect there. Since the June 26th meeting, I have reached out to as many stakeholders as I can on that list. Last night I met with the Conservation Commission and also the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. I have a meeting planned with Director Clancy at the DPW next week. I have a meeting planned with the president of the CBA, the Chelmsford Business Association. They're clearly going to be impacted by this. I'm hoping to connect with a couple of the, like the Historic Commission, the Historic District Commission, and I think eventually there's a plan to have me appear at a department head meeting at some point in the future.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that since then, there exists within the Commonwealth a framework for municipalities and businesses, for that matter, to acquire lighting that is certified as being energy efficient, dark sky friendly. That's through what's called the Design Lights Consortium, which is based in Medford. And utilities often look to this group for guidance on what kind of lighting is the best. And there was a very interesting webinar today that I listened to that was directly connected to how can we select lights that are both energy efficient and dark sky friendly. It was fascinating, and I won't go into the details, but the point is there's a lot of impetus going on behind the scenes to create lighting that does what we need it to do in terms of safety and security, wayfinding and so forth, and also is dark sky friendly. So I'm not alone here. I'm not a voice in the wilderness. I don't know quite what to do tonight. I was talking to Evan just beforehand. I think an important first step will be, as we discussed last time, to determine to what extent, if at all, the planning board can either support or sponsor or create a general bylaw as distinct from a zoning bylaw. Because again, what I'm proposing to do is to remove the zoning bylaw that exists and replace it with a general bylaw. The principal purpose for doing that is so that existing lighting that is bad, that wouldn't conform, can be labeled non-conforming, it won't be grandfathered. There would be a period of time during which we would try to bring that lighting into conformance. The example I gave was, the bylaw that we have, which was great for its time, passed in the year 2000, was before LEDs hit the scene. So every LED that you see on the street or home or business in our town was installed after that bylaw was instituted, and many of those, maybe hundreds of those, I haven't counted, I haven't attempted to count, are not conforming according to the existing bylaw that we have, which has a basic requirement of it has to be pointed down. And lots don't do that. I'm not going to name names, but they're out there. And so, there were some who would say, well, this notion of of eliminating the grandfathering and sunset clause and trying to claw back some of this underperforming overlit is not fair. Well, I would submit that lighting should have been, if that lighting had been installed correctly in the first place, it would probably be conforming now. And so that combined with the fact that LEDs although they're fantastic, they do have a lifetime. Our town streetlights, for example, were installed a decade ago. And they will start to be, not only are they going to start to be at the end of their useful lifetime, which might be 20 years, we don't know. They haven't been up that long. That's on paper how long they might last. But more importantly, the town has more than recouped its return on investment for those lights. And so there are better technologies now than what we installed 10 years ago. So one of the things I hope to discuss with Director Clancy when we meet next week is there a next-gen street lighting plan for Chelmsford? And what would that, and not only street lights, but also the whole municipal lighting package, the parking lot lighting and the library parking lot lighting. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you've probably noticed, which I certainly have noticed, is that many businesses, municipal facilities, have their parking lot lights on all night. Why? What's the point of that? What's the security point of that? And so it's a discussion. I don't think I have the answer for that, but it is a discussion. Next time you drive by the Walgreens late at night, you'll notice that its parking lot is completely dark. There are lights inside. There are lights over the doorways. That's all perfect for security and safety, but there's really no need. And so what I would say to the town, to businesses, to residences, who are saying this is overreach, I'm trying to save you money. If you put in dark sky friendly lighting, if you put in security lighting that only comes on with a motion sensor instead of being on all night, you will save money. Mm-hmm. I can save you money. And so I'm not sure where to go next with the discussion. I'm here to answer your questions as much as anything. I didn't bring my little funky lights tonight, so we can just chat. I want to thank Chris for his great set of questions that he put forward to me. I hope I answered them adequately for you, and that's the kind of discussion that I'm really embracing. I'm reaching out to all these stakeholders, not so much to tell them how it's going to be, but like, what do I need? What have I missed? Where is there common ground?
I mean, a couple things. I have a couple quick thoughts. One is, I'm certainly not a lighting expert, and a lot of this is very technical. But I agree with Chris in terms of, I mean, you add another thought to the idea that we've recouped the investment and that there's better technology available. But I think if we're going to have a transitional period, like timeline to achieve conformity, we might want to have two different timelines, one for people who are changing from standard lights, if there's any of those left, and that might be a short timeline, and maybe a slightly longer one, even yet longer than 5 years for the LED people, so that if people have spent a significant outlay in the last several years, they too would have a chance to recoup their investment.
I agree, and I am open. I kind of think, just in my bones, I think that 10 years is too long across the board. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm trying to do with this proposed bylaw is to find trigger points where we would naturally capture a conversion to conforming lights. If you change Summer Street Mall is a really good example of a place that has 50-year-old lighting technology, high-pressure sodium, which, by the way, from a light pollution standpoint, is pretty good. Mm-hmm. It's that orangey-colored light, but it's relatively inefficient compared to LEDs. LEDs can do all kinds of tricks. They can be turned on and off. They can be dimmed. They can do all kinds of things that high-pressure sodium cannot. And so when the owner of that property eventually changes those over, I would expect those to be conforming out of the gate.
Right.
Right? So I can see, for example, I keep alluding to all of the lights that have been installed, the LEDs that are not conforming. One of the reasons they don't conform is that they're simply not pointed down.
Right.
And they're all on gimbals, so a first order, would be to all right, let's turn those down, and then let's talk in 5 years or 10 years or whatever that might be. One of the components of this is a change to a maximum color temperature, like I demonstrated last time. Even if I point a light down, if it's a really high temperature light, it's eventually going to be replaced. And maybe there's a natural wording that we can come up with, an end of lifetime kind of thing, where there's an agreement that would happen. One of the other things I'm exploring is, you might remember that I have proposed the creation of a sort of an outdoor lighting officer or inspector, someone with expertise that might not exist on the, with the electrical inspector or any of the inspectors in town on a contract basis. It has occurred to me, and I have a close contact in Carlisle, who is the former president of the Illuminating Engineering Society, which sets lighting standards for the whole country. He happens to be next door in Carlisle. Would it be reasonable for those lighting engineers who are sympathetic to dark sky issues to do pro bono work for a business, for a, for the Chelmsford Housing Authority or whoever it might be, to basically design for them or advise them on what lights they can install that would bring them into conformity. I've got all kinds of ideas kicking around in my head, and I think it's all part of the discussion that I want to have with you and with these other stakeholders.
Right. I mean, maybe they could get a reduction of their taxes if they donated time.
I'm just sort of stream of consciousness here. I mentioned this notion of having our next generation streetlights. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is for the funding that came to us for COVID, and I think there's something like $1 million left of it. When we replace the street lights the next time, let me back up. When we replaced the street lights the last time, that was as part of the Johnson Controls Energy Services contract. They didn't care. They replaced street light for street light. If there was one on the pole, they put one back on the pole, roughly the same number of lumens. I managed to capture the ones that were going to be street lights and got them to do 4,000 Kelvin instead of 5,700. But there were a bunch that I missed, especially the ones for area lighting in the town hall parking lot and schools and so forth. What I would love to see the next time we go to that step, and this is one of the things I'm going to talk to DPW about, is let's do a lighting audit. Let's have a professional come in here and tell us. Because if you ask anybody who's been around long enough, they'll say, why is there a street light on Park Road? Why are there only 4 street lights and they're down at the Proctor Road end of it where I live instead of at the beginning where the Acton Road is? It's because they've happened accidentally. Somebody has said at one point in time, I'd sure like to have a street light outside my house, and bang, it happened. There was no plan. And so a lighting audit, we get somebody in here to say, where do you need them, where do you don't? And you'll appreciate the common sense of this, the speed limits in our town are slow enough in most cases for headlights on a car, especially modern headlights, which are much brighter than on my 1999 Jetta, to illuminate the road so that you don't outrun your headlights. That is, you can stop safely within about 40 miles an hour. And there aren't that many places in town that have speed limits above that. And so consequently, a focus for an audit might be, where are the conflict zones? Where are there crosswalks? Where are there pedestrians and cars mingling? Where do you want to have illumination so that somebody doesn't go off the road around a curve or something like that? That's what an audit might do. I would love to see that happen, irrespective of what happens with this bylaw.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. The last time around in 2000, I think I remember that. I think I was.
It was me and Bob Morse.
Yeah, you and Bob
the planning
Morse.
board.
Yeah. They came up with something. It was pretty good for its time. As you've pointed out, though, the problem was not so much that those rules are outdated, although to some degree they are, but rather we just never had an enforcement mechanism. I'm not sure we ever really had a very good mechanism of letting people know. No, just nobody was looking at this stuff. You've mentioned the idea of some person or some group having the authority or responsibility to look after enforcement of whatever we might pass. But I think that deserves a whole lot more conversation because it didn't work the last time. And I've got to make sure it works this time.
Yeah, if I can address that.
Yeah.
What we have is a complaint-driven bylaw.
Right, and that's,
And even, let's face it, there are bigger fish in the building inspector's office in terms of enforcement.
Yep.
And I have once or twice only called attention to certain lights that I thought were egregiously bad, and eventually those were addressed and fixed. To its credit, for example, the CVS in town, the new one that was built, it had what are called wall packs, which are slapped on the side of a building to try to illuminate an entire parking lot. Were not shielded, and they were fixed. When Walmart came in, they abided by the bylaw.
Yeah.
And the lighting around the Walmart, they've added 1 or 2 cents, but if you look at the lighting around the perimeter of Walmart, those are fully shielded fixtures. That was the premise of them. But a complaint-driven bylaw needs somebody to complain. And so, as you point out, if people don't know, if a homeowner changes out, a homeowner will go to a Home Depot and buy a $30 LED security light, slap it up on the side of the house, and they think it's great because it's doing the job and it's not conforming. I would not propose, by the way, just to be clear here, I would not propose that this professional or professionals that we engage become the lighting police and go around town looking for things that are not conforming. It would continue to be, in large part, a complaint-driven system, with the exception that we would have certain gates, certain triggers that would require conformance. If a property is sold, for example, changes ownership, just like you need to have your fire detectors checked, your sewer needs to be in order, this would become one of the things that would need to have a check off that somebody affirms or confirms that your lighting is conforming before it can change hands. Or if you do construction, or if you replace the number of lights in your parking lot. I'm not sure I mentioned this last time, but that's exactly what happened under the existing bylaw with the Chelmsford Mall. When Kohl's came into the Chelmsford Mall, the owners of the property redid the parking lot lighting around Kohl's. And that triggered a provision in the existing bylaw that if you've done more than 25%, and Chris, this is one of those just count the polls kind of thing, if you replace more than 25%, you got to replace them all, and they did. And they put what are called house side shields. If you look next time you go by on the parking lot lights that are along Chelmsford Street, and there are houses across the street, there are little shields at the bottoms of those that keep the light from shining on those properties directly. That was doing the right thing. But that was kind of a rare exception. Was that the only thing? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know you brought that point up, Kelly, but one of the things that we may need to do is, I think someone mentioned it earlier, is separate out the commercial versus residential. It's easy enough to count the poles in a commercial space, but it's not so easy to determine that percentage in residential areas. So we may need to separate out commercial triggers and thresholds versus residential if this needs to go forward.
Right, I don't disagree at all. I mean, if you think about a typical residential house, there's really only 2 kinds of, well, maybe 3 if they've got landscape lighting or lighting strings or something like that. But there's only 2 kinds of lighting. It's what's on their porches and around their entryways, and it's what they might have as a security light shining out to protect their property. Now, research has shown that, believe it or not, all-night security lighting does nothing to improve your safety. All it does is show the bad guys, to be generic here, what you've got in your yard. Much better from the standpoint of security is a security light that's triggered by a motion sensor. And so there's a case where if you look at the watts expended and the dollars expended on electricity for that fixture, converting it to a motion sensor pays for itself very rapidly, sometimes only months. And so you're right that I want to be very careful to preserve a person's right to protect their property with security lighting, But there are ways to do it that are better than maybe the way they're doing it now. And if that requires a two-tiered system, one for commercial and one for residential, that's fine, let's do that.
I think whatever bylaw adjustment we make, I think we should do a timeline that this gets reviewed by the groups that are the stakeholders here, at least every 5 years.
For
Re-up, because technology changes.
Yeah.
right.
So in the next 5 years, right now, we're looking at LEDs right now. What's going to happen in 5 years from now? The change.
Right.
So then we're going to be playing catch-up again. So
Right.
I think we should mandate, if the board agrees and we go to the town, that we do put something in there that the planning board will review it with the stakeholders in the town every 5 years.
Yep.
And see if it needs to continue or any adjustments need to be made.
That sounds wonderful. Are there bylaws on the books that have that kind of recurrent revision?
I don't think
think
there
so.
are, but we can put
Well,
that
you
in
can put
there.
them in, I mean, whether it's regulatory or simply suggestive
I
is
suggest.
an open question, but putting it in there can't hurt you.
Right.
5 years might be quick, maybe 8 or something.
Technology's changing.
Pick a number.
So we're going to make a bylaw right now on technology that's already outdated. And then by the time it gets to a town meeting, there's going to be different types already happening.
Yeah, interestingly, if I could just give you a page from this webinar, I mentioned last time this notion of color temperature. And the lower the color temperature, it's a proxy for how much blue light is in a fixture. The higher that number, the more blue light, the bluer the light looks. The lower that number, the less blue light it has. And in the information that I sent to Chris, there were a series of spectra that you can sort of see how the blue light component diminishes as you lower the color temperature. Even so, what I learned today was that even if you go rock bottom, next time you are driving through the town of Pepperell at night, that they took a great leap. They have installed street lights that have a color temperature of 2200 Kelvin. It's essentially the same as what a high-pressure sodium bulb is. It has those LEDs have a peachy color. And yet, because the LEDs are still broad spectrum, they actually emit and create more light pollution, more light scatter, the blue is in the LEDs, than their high-pressure sodium equivalents. That's why I was saying those HPS bulbs are great from the standpoint of light pollution, horrible from the standpoint of energy efficiency. So, to your point about revisiting, 5 years ago, there was no such thing as a 2200 Kelvin street light. Now they're common. The bar is moving down and down and down. And so I think that's a wise thing to suggest that we revisit it, or maybe it's just something that you do internally here, You have me come back in 5 years and say, what's the state of the science with outdoor lighting, and we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. Let me get my calendar up.
Anyone else have anything else for Kelly or thoughts for us? So going forward, you're going to have a meeting with the department heads. You're going to talk to it seems like we're throwing everything on you, but we're going to have like an organized meeting of the stakeholders, some place to kind of go over this draft, or
what I have done so far is reaching out to the stakeholders one at a time. I think a key one will be the Chelmsford Business Association, which is next week. They've all gone away on vacation. Many of the people who are officers were on the parade committee, and they're wiped. So they all took off on vacation, and they're gone now. But I'm hoping to have something substantive for the next time we meet on that front. Whether we gather all these stakeholders in a room, and hash it out, that might be less productive than, say, encouraging those stakeholders, as you might with any development that you have, to weigh in by letter or by appearing here to say, this is what we think about this, and then maybe have a subset of planning board members to sit around a table and let's work out the wording that we want to have going forward.
okay. And what kind of a timeline do you think would be appropriate to have that
Well,
place?
there was a time, if I'm recalling this correctly, that one didn't dare put a zoning or general bylaw on the
Spring.
docket for a spring town meeting.
Yeah.
But I think that's not as rigorous as it used to be. So I think especially given that some, like the CBA's board is not meeting at all in July and August. So I think the notion of doing a careful and good and collaborative job on this in time for fall town meeting is probably not possible. And I would love to have this continue over the course of the winter and have a really solid one that not only that represents the best thinking of all of these stakeholders, but that they could all support.
So maybe we could shoot for some kind of a meeting like that in October and a draft for January?
It's fine with me. I mean, one of the things I'm going to continue doing in the background, in addition to talking to them, is talk to the people that I deal with in terms of lighting industry people, and say, is this well-grounded? Now, I will say this draft has been in conjunction, co-written by a lighting professional, so it's not something I just made up. But it's a template. It's imperfect. I've tried to tailor it to Chelmsford as best I can, and it's probably an imperfect job. But I would like to see it. You know, there are some hard asks in here. I recognize that. This notion of having no grandfathering in a sunset clause, that's rare. The notion of having an external professional do the ascertainment for whoever needs it, that's rare. And so I would like to still see those components in it, but let's have the discussion and see if it's viable.
Perfect.
Evan, have we heard any answers on whether the planning board can sponsor a general bylaw?
I have not asked council yet. I will do that probably tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, because from my point of view, when I sit behind that microphone as moderator for CTM, I see a lot of citizen petitions that sort of have two strikes against them by the time, when they're brought forward. I will bring this forward as a citizen petition, but I think it would be much more robust and fairly judged, I guess, if it were brought forward by the planning board, if you felt
And I
that.
think if we sponsored it from the vantage point that it's replacing a zoning,
I don't think there's any limitation at all.
yeah,
None.
I would be.
Go ask council.
I would be surprised if there were.
But
Anyway,
I don't think there is.
so, thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you again for your attention, and
Thank you.
keep those questions coming. Thank you.
Okay, so it being 7 o'clock, we're going to start with the regular meeting, which I just wanted to clarify that it is being recorded by telemedia. And if anyone is going to speak when the time comes, you should state your name and your address. I just want to, before we get too far in, I just wanted to mention that we are discussing, not quite yet, 150 North Road, but the developer has requested a continuation for the plan, and the only aspect of that we're going to be discussing this evening is the A&R, the request for A&R. So if people wanted to speak about the general plan, that there won't be an opportunity to do that this evening, because we won't be opening the public hearing on that regard. So I don't know if that leads anyone to not want to stay, but I just wanted to put that out there. We also have several members on Zoom, Anita, I believe, as well as Joel, as well as Chris. Is that correct?
Yes.
So any voting that we do, we will be doing by roll call. And if anyone would please remind me if I forget. Okay, first up we have public input. And public input will be limited to statements relating to issues that are within the jurisdiction of the planning board but are not currently the subject of a pending public hearing. So I don't know if there's anyone who wants to speak about such matters. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. Next up, we have new administrative review, of which there's none, and the administrative review for 150 North Road.
Hi. For the record, my name's Chris Fazenden. I'm the applicant with the Gardner School. Address is 302 Innovation Drive, Franklin, Tennessee 37067. When we were here a couple weeks ago, we decided to continue the review of the A&R plan for 150 North Road. Here tonight to continue that discussion with the objective of obtaining your endorsement on the plan. I put together a brief presentation here, just kind of highlighting a few things. We'll go through existing lot layout and the history. I'll touch on our proposed layout and configuration, and then I'll give you a couple bullet points on why we feel we meet the criteria and are requesting your endorsement. So, first slide here, it shows the lot configuration prior to the 2022 A&R that we discussed last time. The reason I'm showing this to you is this is what the town GIS map currently shows. It hasn't been updated just yet with the 2022 approval. So I know there was some confusion last time. I just wanted to identify kind of the area that was originally subdivided. That's lots 2 and 3 there. Moving down, you then look at the 2022 A&R plan that's been approved and recorded since. This is where it took those lots previously 2 and 3 and subdivided them into 8 lots, all of about the same size, give or take. What I've done here is in red, I've highlighted the 3 lots of this 8-lot subdivision that will be impacted by our proposed subdivision. That's lots 1, 2, and 3. So if we go one more. This is our proposed plan. What we're proposing is to create a single lot comprised of the previous lots 1 and 2 and a portion of lot 3. That's shown there in the red outlined area. Lot area is 3.12 acres, roughly 136,000 square feet. Provides 366 feet of frontage on North Road. And then I've just provided up there some of the dimensional criteria for the zoning. 40-foot front setback, 25-foot side setback, 30 rear setback. So with that, based on kind of the history and what we're proposing, if you want to go to the last one, we evaluated the A&R handbook, we looked at our plan, and we developed a list of bullet points that we feel show we meet the criteria and why we're requesting our endorsement. All the proposed lots shown on our plan, front of public way with the municipal clerk certifying is maintained and used as a public way. We meet the minimum frontage requirement identified in the local bylaw. Can access the appropriate public way from each lot's designated frontage, are providing adequate access to from a recently paved public way of sufficient width and condition to accommodate motor vehicle travel. And we're providing practical access where the buildable portion of each lot is connected by a strip of land no narrower than the required frontage. Those are all criteria in the handbook that designate what allows an A&R plan to be endorsed. With that, I know I ran through it pretty quickly. Happy to answer any questions. I appreciate your time.
I know that we had a question specifically about the procedural ability of having the 8-lot subdivision, single-family subdivision now changed into 5 lots and merge the remaining 3 for the daycare. I mean, it sounds like this 3-lot bit meets the A&R criteria, so it doesn't seem, now as I think about it, that there's a question, but is that a correct understanding?
That's certainly my understanding. With us tonight is Attorney Jonathan Eichman from Copeland and Page. He was originally asked to join in on the site plan, but he is here to answer any questions on the A&R for the board. I think it's fairly straightforward. The applicant's assessment, and I think many board members are aware of the assessment. There was some question, I believe at the last meeting, related to whether any of the legal proceedings and discussions that took place prior to an at-town meeting that resulted in the town voting to take Charles Way, whether any of those legal documents prohibited a modification to the 8-lot single-family A&R subdivision. There was nothing, there's no legal provisions, restrictions, covenants as part of that, that town meeting process. But as I said, town council is here to assist in any way.
I guess I would just like for him to, if it wouldn't be too much, to, I mean, the applicant has done it to some extent, but if town council could just reiterate for us it's my understanding that the requirements for the A&R are met, therefore, the request for the A&R needs to be granted. Is that correct?
Jonathan, you want to welcome yourself to Chelmsford and to the planning board?
I'll let the planning board welcome me, but Madam Chair, my name is Jonathan Eichman. I'm attending at your request to assist. To your question, I believe your understanding is correct. If what the applicant says is correct, and I've reviewed the plan, I believe it is, there is no proposed division of land. What the applicant is proposing is to remove lot lines. So this plan would qualify for an endorsement, and once it qualifies, then the planning board is required to endorse it.
What if we don't?
We won't have a legal standing.
How do we know unless we go to court?
That's how you'd find out.
It sounds to me like, from what Jonathan said, it would be a pretty quick court case.
Worth a try.
I mean,
I mean, the problem here isn't the A&R, the problem is the
No.
other pieces of this.
the
And we're not-
A&R
Well, that
Addressing them
enables
tonight.
the other pieces.
No, they're gonna happen anyway.
I don't know, I'm reading some other stuff here.
So why are they here? If it requires us to approve it and we can't give us our opinion, why do they come to this process?
Because that's what our zoning
But why?
law requires.
We should change it, because this is a waste of a lot of people's
I
time.
think some of it is based upon state law. Jonathan, do you want to provide some context?
Yes, I can. Again, Madam Chair, through you, yes, it is completely based on state law. And in fact, the reason they're asking for your endorsement is because they need your endorsement to record the plan with the Registry of Deeds. And again, the purpose, as I understand it, based on what's shown on the plan, is that they are simply asserting or confirming their intent to use the 3 lots shown on the plan, on the original subdivision plan, as 1 lot. And they're going to record a plan that says as much. And the state law requires that if you want to record a plan showing land, there are only 2 ways to get it recorded. One, you either have a certificate of a land surveyor saying that there are no new lot lines or streets shown on the plan, or that in this case, if there is any new lot lines, that it's not a plan that requires approval under the subdivision control law. And those plans are only those plans where the plan shows a division of land into 2 or more lots. This plan does not show a division, it shows a removal of lot lines. So according to state law, it's going to require endorsement.
Okay. Does anyone have any further questions for the applicant?
I just
or
have a question for Evan.
Jonathan?
I have a question for Evan.
I'll try to help you.
Maybe. I remember this plan coming forward with us to put all those single-family homes on that street. And I just find the plan of the drawing is dated 11/15/21, and then there's a written date a year later. It files a year later than that, and then there's no date next to the signatures of the planning board members that signed it. So do you know when that plan was in front of us? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out some dates here, because it happened after, I know it was after 2020, but I don't recall it being 2022.
I don't recall if the A&R was signed prior to the town meeting or after town meeting.
I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with approving or not approving, it just seems inconsistent on that plan. Because usually when we do sign the plots, these plans, we have a date next to our signatures, and there's no date on this one.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you have the actual submitted plan, It looks like it was revised somewhere in November of 21, and then it looked like at the top right, it was recorded in, say, February of 22.
He's referring to the signature, the planning board signature block. Doesn't have a date.
I was just trying to find out when this came forward to us, because I've been waiting for this development to happen, the actual
Right.
residents that
Sure.
we went through a big discussion on, and it just hasn't happened.
Just giving you the dates that I saw.
Yeah, that's fine. No, it's on the plan. It's on this official plan that you submitted?
Yeah, I think the only update I have on the single-family Charles Way is I believe all of the utilities have been stubbed.
Okay.
And that obviously
So they've been
logistically
working
is
up on the hill,
taking
they've been
place
working
prior to the town going in and upgrading the road.
Okay. Thanks.
So at this point, I think we're looking for a motion from the board. Just as a reminder, the applicant did grant an extension to the board on the statutory time to act. And that is, I think, through this evening or expires tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And we're well beyond the 21 days.
So at this point, I would make a motion to endorse the A&R as presented.
With no determination as to zoning, perhaps?
Correct.
I will
In
second.
addition,
Motion by Chris, second by Mike Raisbeck. We'll take a vote with a roll call. Mike Raisbeck?
Aye.
Aye.
Paul?
No.
Reluctantly, I say aye.
Chris?
aye.
Anita?
Aye.
And
That's it. Joel
I'm
doesn't
an
vote on A&Rs. And you?
I'm an aye.
6 to 1.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Is this open to comment, by chance?
No.
No, it's not public.
Okay. Well, that was fun. On to Nancy Chen, Garrison Place. Oh, first planning board, we're not going to do any,
Should take a motion to continue that to your August 28th meeting?
for the site plan,
Yeah. the
Yeah.
Rules and regulations.
So move.
28th.
Correct.
Take a motion.
I will move it.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
John, Mike, Paul,
Aye.
Mike Wall,
Aye.
Anita,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, so next up we have board's special permit rules and site plan rules and regulations and policies, which we will, again, continue as we have a quite full agenda. Next up, we have Nancy Chen of Garrison Place for the property at 313 Littleton Road for the purpose of creating 3 new residential apartments. The applicant requests approval under Article 21, Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District, in subsections 195-111C, and any other permit relief as may be required under the Chelmsford zoning bylaw to allow the proposed use. The site is in the CB, roadside commercial zoning district, and is shown as parcel ID map 99, block 403, lot 19, and consists of approximately 2.17 acres. We have before us the applicant, Nancy.
Yeah, my name is Nancy Chan from 313 Littleton Road, Chelmsford. And last time you want the whole floor plan, second floor plan for the whole property. So I just, do you have one?
We have it up on the screen.
Oh, okay. And then also you want me to give you the parking space calculation, which I just gave to you.
That just went around the table, hard copy. Nancy brought that to the meeting tonight.
Oh, I don't think I saw that.
Did it go around?
Which one?
I have 7 copies.
Sorry.
So there's three members on Zoom, Nancy,
Okay.
so they're not going to be able to see this. You'll have to walk the board through
Stopped
it.
at me, sorry.
That's okay. If you could summarize.
Yeah, I need a copy because I didn't pull it out. You want me to explain this parking calculation? Parking space calculation?
Yes, yeah, because there's
Please,
three
yeah.
members
Okay.
on Zoom.
The Mexican Chili is basically is a takeout restaurant. So they usually take 3 parking space. And the Thai Jasmine is a Thai restaurant. And they used to have 3 units. Now they just cut down to 2. So they only need 10 parking space. And the liquor store, Castor and the Bottle, they have 5 parking spaces. People in and out in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then the Indian restaurant, a Masala Cafe, is a 16 parking space. And then the upstairs, the dancing center has 20 because some of the teenagers, they drive. And a lot of parents, they just go the loop. They drop the kids and then they leave. And then the Signature Architect, they only have 2 employees, so 2 cars. And the Replay Avenue only have 1. Actually, they usually not show up because the owner is legally blind, so he has to have someone drive him here. He usually is not there.
Okay.
So total added up is a 57 parking space, and I have 157 parking space, so I have 100 extras. You can drive by anytime you will see. I have a lot of parking space left.
Okay. And so the parking required, obviously it's not 100 spaces, but just to be, for the sake of completeness, the parking required for the apartments will be,
Well, I would say 2 per apartment, 2 husband and wife.
No, what are the
based on the
rules say?
bedrooms.
Yeah, how many seats are in the Thai Jasmine? How many
Well, those
seats are in the
parking, the
Masala
parking
Cafe?
counts that Nancy has presented are likely either based upon what she believes is the actual usage, maybe the lease, but certainly not zoning.
Yeah, so like Masala Cafe, how many seats are in that?
I think they are like 60, but if you divide it by 4, so it's 15 tables.
Nancy, I think the board was looking for this information based upon compliance with parking ratios.
What I try to say is, I think this 313 Littleton Place has the highest number parking space than any property in Chelmsford. 157, and it has 100 space empty.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right that it's not an inadequate number of parking spaces, but yeah, we were asking for, so the restaurant ones are based on number of seats in the restaurant and
Well, restaurant business change a lot.
But the bylaws do not.
Okay, yeah, so for Thai restaurant, they used
Yeah.
all 3 units, now they cut down to 2.
Yeah, but it's not the units, it's the seats in the
Yeah,
restaurant.
that means they cut down the seat as well. The 3rd unit, they have a lot of seat before.
There's a,
We have the information, the licensing information, and the maximum capacity. We have that information. That's what we use to determine required parking based upon the licensed capacity.
okay,
So I can work with Nancy to provide that
that's fine.
information.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, I think it's fine.
Yeah, my
But-
guess is the COID requires one space per studio unit, 1.5 spaces per 1 bedroom, 2 spaces per unit with 2 or 3 bedrooms, plus 1 visitor space for every 3 units.
It should be fine.
So it's less than 10
Yeah.
out of available 100, so it's.
She likely has adequate parking.
I think she has adequate parking, right. Okay. And then you had given us the plans that we requested,
For the whole upstairs.
and also for the apartments.
Right, so you can see it's the back of the building, that's where the apartment located, in the back. 4 units.
So I think Mike asked for this.
Right,
So she penciled in the other tenant spaces, dancing center,
yep.
Signature Architects, and then it looks like there's a couple vacant tenant spaces on the second floor.
Yep.
And then the revised floor plan is here.
Lots of sinks.
I know. It's, this building originally, they planned as a commercial condo. So each unit, they have 2 bathrooms. And a separate meters, separate ACs, separate furnace, everything separate. So when I convert to apartment, it's so easy. They're already separate. And on July 1st, I talked to the fire department. What's her name? You have the letter from her? Right after she came back from 10-day or 2 weeks vacation. So I asked her, what are you talking about, special person to evaluate this and that? And then she said, oh, you can have your architect, you can have your electrician. No. Every year I have fire alarm specialist, not electrician, not architect, to do the annual inspection. And matter of fact, last year, when they did the inspection, and they told me like 15 of the smoke detector was on the recall after 35 years. And I changed it all. I said, architect wouldn't know that, and the electrician wouldn't know that. Only
Well,
the
they actually asked for a fire protection engineer.
Yeah, that's why I say, every year I have a fire protection engineer to inspect my unit, every year. And also sprinkler specialist. So I talked to her. I said, and then at the end she said, oh, you are okay. But later, in other words, the reason I talked to her is I would say, what are you talking about? What kind of specialist?
Okay, well, we're going to need another letter saying.
Yeah, I
you're
will
okay.
tell her. I'll tell her.
And then the water district wanted you to meet with them?
No, I already did before I applied. So that's why he did the calculation. I already talked to him.
Well, that's the sewer, right?
That's the
water.
I thought it's the water. I mean sewer and the water. They are use the same calculation.
So the Chelmsford Water District had concerns about the conversion. A representative for the project should contact the Chelmsford Water District. Once the contractor has met with us, reviewed, and accepted our requirements, we will forward a signed approval letter. So we would need that as well.
Okay. I also talked to the sewer department.
Okay, but we need the clean letters.
Okay, I will do that.
I mean, is everyone in accord?
Well, the fire prevention office just requests that these stipulations and requirements are included
Right,
in any
and the water
policy.
too.
Yeah.
If we approve the project.
Right, and it looked to me like the DPW was okay with the sewer based on their calculations, but they wanted some official notification from Nancy before they would also give a clean letter. Is that,
I don't recall that. I have it, I'm bringing it up right now.
yeah.
This is the water district.
A certificate of occupancy will not be issued until DPW receives a letter from the owner stating they're using 330 GPGs of the allowable 500 for this property. So there's just, it seems like there's some crossed Ts and dotted Is that need yet to be.
So I have to write a letter to DPW, and then I have to get a letter from the water department.
In the fire department,
Okay.
yeah. And then, I mean, so past that, then, I guess I'll take a motion
To continue?
to, well, do we want to discuss it? Or you want to wait till all this is done to discuss it?
I just want to know where else in town do we have mixed use on the second floor, residential and office space?
Well, we just approved it on.
That was actually going to be one of my questions.
It doesn't.
Well, we just approved it for one of the Parley buildings. Remember, it was medical on the first floor, and then
First floor.
Three meeting.
And then the
Not
second
on
floor.
the same
We're actually
floor.
looking for
On the same
first
floor,
floor.
right across the doorway,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
going to be a public office, and you have residential on the other floor, other side of the hallway?
This is a
Doesn't
shared,
make sense.
this is a shared hallway with businesses and residences.
But they don't share
And one of the
entrance.
businesses is a recording studio.
They share a public hallway.
No, well, yes,
There's
no.
a bathroom that's shared too.
Yes,
It's still on
no.
the plans that we brought up last meeting.
If you can see, the dance center and the architect, they just use the hallway from elevator to the stairways, and then the residential area, they use the other side door. So they really don't, I don't want them share the hallway. And what I try to say is, eventually, I probably will convert all to apartment, but at this point, I'm not sure yet. What I try to say is, if I can, separate them, the hallway wise, the entrance wise, entrance, I try to play low key on both sides because, like a dance center, they really like the space. You know why? Because the parking space. Sometimes they have the photo day. All the student has to come in at the same time, same day. So they would like to have 157 parking space.
So the overlay allows it. The fact that
No
there
one's
isn't,
done
there
it.
there aren't
Yeah.
mixed hallways, I agree, there probably isn't another example in town.
It doesn't make sense. Doesn't show any kitchens, doesn't show the layouts of the
Oh,
rooms. And I know we don't get into that. We asked about why there's a common bathroom for the hallway that comes off of a bedroom for the public, and that has not been addressed. This doesn't make sense. And the fire department says, if the planning board approves this, well, if there's a fire in this place, there's a ton of people living in here, are they gonna say, well, the planning board approved it? I don't like the letter of that, the fire department's letter.
I don't either.
Putting it on the planning board. So just think about that when you take your vote.
I don't like either.
This
And
doesn't
I-
make sense.
I talked to her on July 1st, and then she said, you are okay. I said, because I want to know what kind of specialist she wants to inspect this space. And then she said, architect. I said, no. She said, electrician. I said, no, I have better
But
one,
that's-
fire alarm
Well,
The
specialist.
safety officer said a fire protection engineer.
And then a structural engineer to make sure it is fire rated, your building.
Yeah.
That's what they're asking.
Yeah,
So you do need
yeah,
an engineer.
So why don't you continue, give Nancy till
yeah.
August 28th to circle back with those departments. Your
I'm
goal
not
is to
in a
get clean
hurry.
letters,
Yeah,
and then at least the board is voting on the provisions within the COID, zoning-related provisions rather than life safety, fire
Yeah.
building provisions.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't even know how many bedrooms are going in here.
I already wrote it down. It's only.
You wrote it down. You're not
I
showing
mean,
it.
it shows on the
It's
plan.
it's 4 big rooms.
No. It's the plan says bedroom. In other words, basically, I
The whole
don't
space
like
is a bedroom?
I just thought they were studios. Are they not studios?
the smallest one. Yes, unit 19. In other words, the other office they are bedrooms. I don't like to take something down and generate a lot of garbage and then build it up, no.
You're trying to build to suit, is what you're saying. But
No, I
don't think
just rent as is and just make sure they have kitchen, shower, bathroom. Very
So you're
easy.
taking an office space and making it a residential space
And add,
without making any improvements.
I do, I have to add kitchen sink, kitchen, and a shower, so just like unit 13, which already.
Yeah, well, the
someone-
one we approved for the building manager
Yeah, yes,
only,
yes, it is.
and now you're coming, so here it comes. Well,
Right.
We mentioned it before, you're asking for 3 more here now, and you're gonna ask, how many more you're gonna ask for in 2 years from now?
Who knows? I mean, I can't predict
Complicated.
future. I think architect probably gonna retire in 5 years. I will not get rid of them. They love that space. So, you know, I love my tenants. It's their livelihood. You know, I can't get rid of them, and that's why I try to, you know, make sure they have their own entrance, own hallway. Not, they are happy. They are happy. Everything's separate. So far, so good.
That's good that you own the building, they're happy, but we make this change, you can sell the building, everything changes. So it really has to be, I think that they're correct saying that an architect should be involved. And definitely a structural engineer. There's questions about the fire safety.
Yeah. I will talk to fire prevention and make sure she address the problem you concerned. You know?
I would suggest that you,
Clear that up.
Yeah, I
Hire
just
a
talked to
fire
her. I
protection
didn't ask
engineer.
her to have a ladder, you know, because she said, "You are okay, you are okay." I'm not lying. Whatever I said is on the record, okay? July 1st, first thing in the morning, I talked to her.
Let's get it in writing.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll have her put it in writing. Yeah.
Okay, so I will take a motion.
I will move to.
Before we do that, I would
Yeah.
also like to request that couple things be addressed. I think Mike mentioned one of them, that I also mentioned in past meetings, that bathroom cannot be accessible from the hallway.
No, it's not.
Um,
It's not.
It is, there's a doorway there.
Yeah, why is it we
And-
have to change that?
That's where the architect comes in.
Well, then,
Yeah.
so present
But that
plans
needs to be on the
that
plans.
show that.
And I also would like to see something addressed where maybe separate entrances for those businesses, but I don't like a shared hallway, a common hallway for business and residents.
Right now, the main lobby is for business entrance only. Okay?
But the
Oh.
hallway that I'm seeing on that second floor is the same hallway to access
The dance.
Replay Avenue,
Well,
And the dance
replay,
Signature Architects, and all
Yeah.
of those units.
replay Avenue never showed up. You know, his family live in Westford, and he is legally blind. I don't know why he rent a space from me for 20 years. He just,
Well,
as a storage
to-
almost.
It's the Oregon.
According to what I saw online, it's a
I know.
recording studio that people can rent out.
I know, no, actually never happened. So for 20 years. He just stored
But
his.
we're talking about the plans, we're not
Right.
talking about the tenants.
Right. He was asking me, that's why I explained.
Well, no, he was saying the plans, in his opinion, can't have a shared hallway between residences and businesses and a
Actually,
bathroom.
I talked to Replay app, and I told him he has to use the side door, not the same hallway as the other business. Because actually, he just used this as a storage. And it won't be too long, the whole, that side gonna be a apartment, I think.
Well, I just don't, I don't think
That
you're
would be
hearing
cleaner.
us, and so I feel like I'm afraid what's gonna happen is that you're gonna come back on the 28th and not have addressed our concerns. So I just wanna make sure you understand.
what I try to say is, it's been since January 1st this year. I already told everybody the lobby entrance, which was the main entrance, will be for business only. Okay, which is only two business, dance center and architect. And I can assure you, the Replay Avenue is just for storage. And I already told him he has to use the other one. You know why? Because the dance center doesn't like to see young men walking there.
Okay.
Which Replay Avenue is a young man,
Well,
legally blind young man.
we took a motion.
Yeah, to continue to August, whatever it was.
28th.
Mike, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you.
And Anita? And
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye, so it's unanimous.
See you on the 28th.
Yep. And I'll make sure I have all the letters from fire department, from water department, yeah.
And DPW.
And
Right,
updated
right.
plans,
Right, 3 letters.
And the plans that show.
updated plans that show what we asked for.
Yeah.
Preferably from an architect.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Next up, we have, well,
We're going to do the vote to
Yeah, we
continue.
got to
vote to
continue
continue.
150.
So we have 150 North Road requesting for continuation.
I'll move to continue to August 28th, was it?
Yes.
I went to that dance. I was a dance dad.
All right, so motion by Mike Raisbeck, second by John
I'll
Sousa.
second.
And we'll take a vote on continuing
Aye.
150 North. John?
Aye for me.
Paul?
Aye.
Mike Walsh is an aye. Anita?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that's unanimous. And next up, we have 10 Hildreth Street.
Good evening. For the record, Brian Gaudreau with Hancock Associates, along with Attorney Hausler, and on Zoom, we have John DeMille, Project LSP with Wilcox and Barton. So this evening, I'd like to talk about three items primarily. First, just an overview of the updated 4-lot exhibit that we have, as well as what happened at Conservation last night. And then I'll turn it over to Attorney Hausler to go over the title that was requested, with the understanding that KP Law still has to review that. And then the majority of the time, I'd like to dive into stormwater, just to understand, or kind of refamiliarize the board with our approach to stormwater, how it's been reviewed by DPW, and then what outstanding unaddressed items or concerns that the board may have with respect to that. Evan, could you pull up the 4 lots exhibit?
This one?
No, the one that was shared earlier in the week.
This one.
Yes. So last time we were before you, we had introduced a 4-lot revision. It dropped the project density down to 3 duplexes and then a relocation of the existing home on Lot 4. We had a pretty lengthy discussion about roadway waivers and different criteria, and the board had indicated sidewalks only on one side. This is a reflection of that. So primarily, what we've done is we've tightened up the right-of-way to 34 feet from what is required, which is 40 feet for a lane. So 8 feet, kind of a waived reduction, and then a sidewalk on the northern side of the roadway. We're still showing a 20-foot paved width with a T-style turnaround. We anticipate further discussion on that item, obviously. And then we've added visitor parking spaces. So we've provided 7 visitor parking spaces, 3 up towards the front of the project by Hildreth and 4 at the rear off the Hammerhead turnaround. And that's an attempt to address the concern that there's not going to be adequate parking. I had described one garage space and 2 driveway spaces per unit, so there's 3 spaces for each one of the duplexes that is there. Now, last night at Conservation, we showed this plan, and generally it was received better than the previous one. We still have to take a hard look at Lot 4, and likely we're going to be revising that limit of work line to be at the 100-foot buffer. It encroaches about 10 feet to 0 feet, given the irregular shape of the buffer. So generally, with this exhibit, we incorporated what the board had indicated last time, and with the understanding that we're going to continue to discuss the waivers that are proposed. So with that, that's the exhibit. Doug, I'd like to turn it over to you to speak about title, and then back to me for stormwater.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members. At your request, I performed a full title examination of the 2 parcels that are at issue here. There are 2 parcels. One is a 38,000 square foot parcel. It's shown on the subdivision plan as Lot 5 in Plan Book 88, Plan 57. The second parcel is 4.217 acres, and that's on Plan Book 85, Plan 33A. I provided Evan and he'll spread it around to town council and anybody else, the full backup for all of the references I'm making here from the records of the Registry of Deeds. Both of the plans that I just referenced were stamped as A&R plans from prior planning boards going back 50 years or more, obviously. We're talking about 60 years, actually. Both parcels have more than sufficient frontage, 179 feet on parcel 2 and 125 on parcel 1. I've provided copies of the deeds of record. Those 2 deeds came under separate chains and eventually became into one chain of title sometime in or about the 1950s. But I've laid out the history. I did a 100-year search of the titles, mostly because it was relatively easy in certain instances. What I was really trying to find were a layout of Hildreth Street. What was envisioned back in 1890, 1900, 1910. I could not find, there's a reference to some type of a description of Hildreth Street that was in some deed, which I have not been able to locate. It was from one individual sold by Frederick Fisher, and it seems to be sometime in the 1910 period. I have searched the records. I have not been able to locate it. I'm going to continue to try to find that. But it's well outside the Massachusetts standard of a 50-year title. What it was interesting about the title, I found, is that not so much in the deeds to the subject locus that you've been reviewing, but in some of the other deeds relevant to the parcels along Hildreth Street. And most particularly, I found one I thought really hit the spot, which was, I believe it was for 9 Hildreth Street, and that title. And it described Hildreth Street, and as I wrote, for that portion of Hildreth Street between Plum and Billrica Road, so going south to north. And it described it as follows. First of all, they called it a right-of-way in one plan, and then they called it a street, and then an area reserved for road. They all referred to a 25-foot wide street and an additional 15-foot area designated reserved for road. That's how it's shown on the plans of record. So it was originally envisioned to be a 40-foot wide access route. That's how it was adopted. The language, particularly in many of the deeds, was a strip of land 25 feet in width, bordering on the easterly side of the premises. So basically from my client's lot line on Hildreth Street, then going 25 feet westerly. And that is to always kept open with the benefit of a perpetual right to pass and repass on foot or with horses or wagons or other vehicles. Said strip running to Billrica Street, so-called, as mentioned in the deed, and this is what I was referring to, George M. Wright from Frederick A. Fisher. So apparently sometime in 1910-ish time period, they envisioned a 25-foot road with another, and then it goes on further and later on with an additional 15.1 foot plot shown on the plan reserved for roads to be kept open for street purposes, being a street 40 feet in width. That's what the records of the various deeds are showing along Hildreth Street. They do not say that in my client's deeds because it just directly abuts an A&R lot that is a record. They're using the plan of record. They have the right to use the road. I then provided some case law on this, which I'm sure town council will review, and I'll be happy to discuss anything with town council. But what I found under Massachusetts law is that a right-of-way is a publicly owned area reserved for transportation purposes, and that adjacent land from private owners may be required to construct or reconstruct highways or bridges within a right-of-way. And generally in Chelmsford, we use a 6 to 8 feet area for reserve for a right-of-way expansion. We are seeking to expand that road width from what it currently on ground is, I think, approximately 14 feet in some places. But that's the entire purpose of the easement that's been declared the road. Purpose of that easement is for transportation. We're just looking to improve it, as is the legal right of an abutting property owner to a road. An abutter to an unimproved public way has the legal right to use the unimproved public way, and it doesn't constitute trespass because he's entitled to use the entire width of the way. So somebody like our applicant is using his rights to use Hildreth Street. He possesses a right of travel over the entire width of the land that's been reserved for the street, and he's entitled to make the street passable and usable for its entire width. So technically, if my client desired to do, and I don't think it does whatsoever, it could ask and demand that it be 40 feet and build out, or build 32 and reserve the 8 feet. It's not looking to do that because it's not looking to further disturb any of the abutters along the way. I also cited some case law, including a 2023 appeals court case. It's well established that the holder of an easement has the duty to make repairs and improvements necessary for enjoyment of the easement, so long as the burden on the servient estate is not unreasonably increased. We're not looking to overburden the easement. We're doing it exactly for what the purpose of the easement was, for travel, passing, repassing. And then I cited a whole series of cases about easements and the right to enjoy the rights to use the easement. There was another more recent case in the Land Court, 2013, that said, it's well settled that where there are several owners in common of a private way, each owner may make reasonable repairs which do not injuriously affect his co-owners, but he cannot make any alteration of the course of the way or any change in grade or service which makes the way less convenient and useful to anybody who's using the right-of-way. So if my client was required to have to take some portion of somebody's front yard, it's not lessening their property, it's benefiting the entire use of the street for everyone's purpose, so it meets the definition. So he's just trying to make reasonable improvements to the topography, width, and grade of the road. I've given up as attachments plans of records, deeds, again, going back 100 years. I think it'll make it fairly straightforward that he has a right to widen the street. And we'll be able to be pleased to answer any questions after town council has a chance to review it, or the board has a chance to digest what we've just given to you. Thank you for your time.
Was that in our packet? I missed it.
It
No,
came
it
this
came in.
afternoon.
I'm going to email it out to the board and council tomorrow. Did I already email that
I
out?
think you did this
But I
afternoon.
thought, okay, yeah. So council's still with us. He obviously hasn't had a chance to do a deep dive on it.
Right. Okay. So, do we want to have any commentary on that, or should we go to stormwater?
I haven't read it, so I don't know.
I'm happy to dive into stormwater. I know the material was just given to the board, so it might take a little bit of time, especially with KP Law reviewing. So moving on to stormwater. We issued an exhibit today that was brought up during the last hearing, and it was an overlay of the hydrogeologic groundwater contour map. It was within the Board of Health required hydrogeo study, and we overlaid the 5-lot subdivision plan, which is the actual engineered plan that we have out here. So just taking a step back from this, our stormwater methodology is focused on primarily mirroring existing conditions. So right now we have a single-family house out there in a driveway, and topographically the entire site slopes from north to south, generally speaking. It's like northwest to southwest. Our stormwater analysis points were at the southern property line, at the abutter, and then also at the southern property line for River Meadow Brook. So we took 2 analysis points. One of them, conservation has a little interest in because of the potential vernal pool and the wetlands that are associated with it off-site. So we analyzed that separately. We're charged with making sure that at property lines we're not discharging a higher peak rate than existing conditions. So the way that we're approaching stormwater is the roadway captures the northern lots, flow onto the roadway. There's a series of catch basins, and then at the end of the cul-de-sac or hammerhead turnaround, however it ends up being configured, there's an underground infiltration system. So they're plastic chambers in the ground surrounded by stone that capture stormwater, attenuate, which is slow it down, and then provide recharge, put stormwater into the ground. Again, the goal here is to mirror the existing conditions. Now, DPW has reviewed our stormwater twice now. They reviewed it originally with the 6-lot subdivision plan and then the revised 5-lot subdivision. Again, with the 4-lot exhibit that we've shown, we have to engineer that, and it will be another revision to this plan, and that's essentially right-sizing the underground system. So our treatment train, if you will, it's how we treat for total suspended solids. We have deep sun-putted catch basins to a hydrodynamic separator. Those 2 elements exceed the TSS that's required by the town and the state, and then it gets passed into an underground infiltration system. The infiltration system itself is also configured with an isolator row. An isolator row is a row of chambers wrapped with geotextile that provides additional filtration to any of the stormwater entering the system before it has a chance to be infiltrated into the ground. Our outfall pipe is, there's a little arrow pointed kind of on the southern portion of the cul-de-sac. So there's a 12-inch ADS pipe. So that's discharging excess runoff for those less frequent events. So think 100-year storm, think 25-year storm. Again, all of our calculations have been reviewed twice now by DPW, and they found them to be consistent with both state regulation and local stormwater regulation. Now, in relation to the exhibit plan that you see before you, 6 monitoring wells were installed as a part of the hydrogeologic analysis. It basically, the point of the wells was to test for specific constituents, as well as determine the direction of groundwater flow and the influence of the Chelmsford Water Department's public water supply wells. And what the results of the groundwater kind of contouring analysis is generally speaking, groundwater flows the same direction that surface water flows. It all goes from northwest to southeast towards River Meadow Brook. The report itself determined that this site is outside the zone of influence of the Chelmsford Water Department's public water supply wells, so there's no impact when the pumps are on or the pumps are off. And you can see generally how it's located, the stormwater chambers are located on the site in relation to those wells and the testing that was performed there. Now, again, John DeMille with Wilcox and Barton is here, so if there's any questions about the testing or constituents of the groundwater wells, he will be happy to answer those. Now, our position is that this design as it sits, again, with the caveat that we have to revise from 5 lots down to 4, so basically shrink down our stormwater system for the reduced impact that we currently are proposing, meet all of the state and local regulations. I know we haven't had a chance to dive into this, but because we are, again, embarking on a full redesign of this, I want to make sure that we understand any concerns that the board has with respect to stormwater and the groundwater and monitoring wells that are out there right now. So that is my presentation, kind of a high-level review of what has been proposed previously, kind of the process that we've gone through and been reviewed by DPW. And again, John is on Zoom, and I am here to answer questions the board may have.
Hi, everyone. Just for the record, I'm John DeMille with Wilcox and Barton, licensed site professional. Michael LaFavor has brought me into this project ever since the initial detection of PFAS in groundwater. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
This is Joel. Have we received a report that indicates to us what the PFAS levels are and where they were detected and so forth?
It's pinned to the agenda.
It's been submitted to numerous departments. Brian, I'll have you chime in on that.
Yeah, it's posted, linked on the agenda right now. It's Northeast Geoscience Hydrogeologic Report.
Okay, I apologize. I haven't had a chance to look at that. Could you tell us in what wells was PFAS? Well, first of all, was PFAS the only reportable contaminant that you discovered?
So with regards to contaminants regulated under the MCP, I believe the water district required sampling for PFAS and volatile organic compounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding, so NGI did the initial sampling event at wells, if you see the exhibit, MW1, MW2, and MW3. Those 3 wells were sampled for both VOCs and PFAS. VOCs were not detected above laboratory reporting limits. However, PFAS, or total PFAS 6, which are the 6 regulated PFAS compounds regulated by Mass DEP and the MCP, were detected at concentrations slightly above the existing threshold for GW1 waters in 2 monitoring wells on the eastern downgradient portion of the property, MW1 and MW2. So after this initial finding, this is when my company jumped in, we resampled those wells because PFAS are very delicate. They're being detected at levels parts per trillion, which is extremely low. If there's any sediment in the sample, if the sampler has sunscreen on that contains PFAS, if they're wearing waterproof clothing, you can cross-contaminate the sample.
Mm-hmm.
So our first step was to go out there and resample the 3 existing monitoring wells. We did that. We found similar results. So we said, all right, is this an on-site source, or is this a regional issue? So we started looking into it a bit more. Obviously, many of you are aware that the Chelmsford water supply, several of the water supply wells are impacted with PFAS. I believe it's Riverneck Water Treatment is the water resource that serves this neighborhood, and they have had detections of PFAS at similar concentrations. So that means these folks in this neighborhood are using their hoses outside to wash their car, water their garden, power wash their house, and these PFAS are coming from the municipal well and infiltrating into the groundwater surface. So what we did, just to kind of evaluate this theory and this thought process, is we installed 3 additional wells on the upgrading side of the property. This is MW101, MW102, and MW103. You can see that we sampled each of those wells only once. And at MW103, which is the most upgradient well, right at the upgrading edge of the property, we have PFAS-6 concentrations at 15.4 nanogram per liter. It doesn't exceed the threshold, but as I said, this is a very sensitive laboratory analysis. This is PPT. In my mind, in my professional mind, and what I've seen at numerous sites across the Commonwealth, 15.4 and 22.8, those are the same concentrations in my mind. So to me,
I'm sorry,
what
can
we
you
have,
repeat that again? 15.
yes, so because the concentrations, the detection limits are so low, we're looking at PPT, parts per trillion. At MW103, I have a PFAS-6 concentration of 15.4. At MW2, where it exceeds the threshold, I have a concentration of 22.8. With my experience at PFAS sites throughout the state, those concentrations are pretty much the same. If I were to go out and sample 103 again, I could detect PFAS-6 at 5. I could detect PFAS-6 at 24. You're going to get a fluctuation. In fact, MW2 was sampled twice. First time it was sampled, it was below the threshold. It was detected at a concentration of 17.6. The second time, when we resampled, it went up a little bit. These concentrations are going to fluctuate above and below the standard because the standard is so low and the detection limits are so low. So after all that jibber jabber, what my current theory is based on the data, based on my site inspections at this site, I don't have a significant source of PFAS contamination on my site. It appears it's migrating from an off-site source, or it's a factor of the impacted public water supply well that serves the property.
So the fact that you're detecting it at sort of a most upgradient, I assume that the one that's close to the road is about the most upgradient?
That's correct. I have another upgradient well that's right on the northern portion of the property.
Yeah, it's a little bit further north, yeah.
Can you put those up?
And that has a 6, so that is a difference.
That is a difference. So
there was speculation that there was contaminants dumped on that property at some point. So your professional opinion is that the difference between a 6 and a 22.7 is just the water we use from River Neck? Is that
It's an undeveloped site, other than that house, right?
Yeah.
Like, how is water being
How's-
used?
Yeah.
Neighbors?
Like nobody's washing
No one's
their
been in
cars
that
back
house
there. They're
for a
not
very
gardening.
long time.
Okay, but PFAS compounds, if you're familiar, they're called the forever compounds because they don't go away. So how long has the public water supply well been impacted? We've only started monitoring for PFAS how long ago? PFAS have been in use since the 1950s.
But your premise is that someone was using water in that general area from River Neck supply that may have contaminated from washing cars, whatever. But the problem is, there's speculation that there was other things happening on that property, like car repairs. He ran a car repair business out of that property.
Cars were.
So when I did a phase 1 environmental site assessment as well at this property, I interviewed the property owner, Garrett Oberhauser. The information that he provided with me, and based on what I saw during my site inspection, granted it's vacant right now, he indicated that he did hobby, personal automotive repair in his driveway and in his garage.
He had a company. He had a company that he, as far as we know, I mean, there was speculation that mail was delivered to a neighbor with his business being a automotive repair business.
Yep, so I don't know about that. I did question him about any commercial industrial use of the property. The only information that he indicated was that he ran a small, hobby farm, horse farm, grew corn, grew hay.
His dad did, I think.
Could I make a suggestion here?
Yep.
I believe the Board of Health is scheduled to meet, it's either August 5th or 6th, to specifically discuss the Phase 1.
And what about the peer review of the hydro?
And I believe they're peer reviewing the Phase 1 as well, and they're discussing the hydrogeologic report with a peer
Having that peer
review.
reviewed also, yeah.
Yeah. So
Is
that leads me to believe that the proper venue and forum for the Phase 1 contamination is with the Board of Health. And I would encourage the board to engage with Brian similarly as you did with 93 Brick Hill, stormwater as it pertains to proximity to infiltration areas. And then see how the Board of Health process plays out in a general sense related to contamination.
Well, it just seems like it gradually gets worse as it goes through the area where we're concerned.
Sure. I mean, what I'm suggesting is,
catch that.
So it starts out at 6.7 and it slowly
yeah,
gets.
under definitive subdivision, I'm not sure you're gonna be able to require cleanup or pursue
Well,
site
it
characterization.
doesn't start out at 6.7. It was detected in that well at 6.7. It also was detected at another upgradient well at 15.4.
But the board's focus under definitive subdivision is stormwater. And then you have a special permit on aquifer protection as well. So I think you need to figure out whether, you're gonna lead the Phase 1 PFAS contamination effort, or is the Board of Health? The Board of Health is the one who required it because they have the legal authority to. Former council indicated to the board that under definitive subdivision, the planning board didn't have the authority.
To require it.
Right, and we never asked about aquifer protection special permit. But the Board of Health is pursuing that information. And in this process, to date, we haven't spent a lot of time on the aquifer protection special permit. But tonight, I think it's about,
But the stormwater is changing too, so I mean, you're changing the whole project.
So to
We don't even know how the road's being laid out, a hammerhead or a.
From a stormwater perspective, it doesn't matter. So our stormwater design is not going to fundamentally change unless there is the interest of this board to do something. Regardless if the road ends up as a full cul-de-sac, a hammerhead turnaround, we're showing 20 feet wide. If the board doesn't grant that waiver and it's 22 feet wide, we're only talking about square footage of impervious being contributory to what we've designed. So that's a volume calculation, and that's a TSS calculation.
Right.
So fundamentally, none of that matters from stormwater.
Okay, all right.
Brian, in the new design, are you guys still considering the sloped granite curbing?
I don't know if we're showing curbing on this right now.
Are you showing two sides sidewalk there? I can't tell.
No, it's sidewalk on one side. I
So
believe,
storm-
Chris, you would ask for curbing in relation to stormwater, and we would make that concession and not ask for the waiver on curbing. We would still want the reduced pavement width and a hammerhead potentially, but if there's an assurance that granite curbing gives this board, I think we're willing to do that.
As far as the stormwater goes, our concerns, for example, on 270, we had reportable concentrations at about 20 or so, if I recall, at Billerica Road, and then in the back of the property, it was about 90. So there was an appreciable difference there, as opposed to what we're seeing here. In the case of 93 Brick Hill, we had a place, sort of a spot of PFAS, which we don't know if it was bigger or smaller because they didn't test around it. But in that case, they were locating a large amount of infiltration just up gradient of it, where down gradient it was leading to zone 2. In this case, we're detecting what looks to me like a more uniform distribution potentially of PFAS that isn't varying significantly over the property. And we aren't, I don't think we're necessarily the plan is introducing infiltration in a concentrated area close to where we think there is a potential source of PFAS, so I'm a little bit less concerned in this case. In 270, there it was pretty drastic because it was all impervious, and then we were making it largely pervious, or not largely pervious, but rather whereas before it was impervious and that water was not going into the ground, then with the new design, a lot of water was going into the ground, which is why we ultimately, we're very open to them not doing that. So at least as far as stormwater design goes, I think that I don't see a significant difference. That's certainly something that Brian's well aware of, what the concerns were at 93 Brick Hill, and he can factor those into his thinkings there. Some of the other questions I had, which I'm sure DPW will address, but I'll just mention them here, is that a setbacks, particularly setbacks from the infiltration and septic, and setbacks of infiltration from gradients, both up and down. So those I would suggest you do definitely keep an eye on, in your design of this thing. I'm sure DPW will look for those too.
Brian, I also had one more question. I thought I heard you mention at the beginning that the impervious surfaces for the northern 3 units and driveways would be emptying into the street?
Correct.
Is that what I heard?
Topographically, it's higher. So as water sheds off the roof, off the driveway, they're going to be collected by the catch bases within the roadway and then funneled through the underground system.
Okay.
Like, it's just uphill.
It's just uphill, correct.
You're gonna keep that grade.
But that's just for the impervious surfaces of the driveway. You're still going to have the rain gutters on the buildings. Right?
So we haven't shown gutters or no gutters, downspouts. We are not proposing individual lot drywalls at this time. Our recharge is through the system in the roadway, and again, it's collecting runoff from the northern lots and a portion of the driveways on the southern lots that are pitched towards the road.
Including the roofs of the houses?
No. If you look at lots 4, the back of the house is going to sheet flow towards the property line. The front of the house is going to sheet flow towards the road. On the northern lots, it's the entire lots that go towards the road.
Okay.
And that was one of the kind of key points that I tried to highlight with using the southern property line as an analysis point to make sure that we're not discharging stormwater that doesn't mirror existing conditions.
Anyone else have any other questions for the LSP or for Brian? Or comments? Okay, shall we open it up to the public?
Before we do that, can we talk about the discussion we had last meeting where we were doing the straw poll to move to do the waivers for the street width in order to get that completely out of Concom jurisdiction? And based on these plans and what I've heard at the Concom meeting last night on the recording, that actually didn't happen. So while we straw polled to give the waivers, they're still in Concom jurisdiction. Not only with the pieces of lawn, but also the outflow. And I've got serious concerns about that. The fact that we're now waiving things and having Concom make compromises as well.
Well, I thought we were only waiving it in order to get it out of Concom's area.
Yep, and that did not happen. It's still in Concom jurisdiction for
Okay.
both the lawn area and the outflow. And so if that's going to be the case, then I'm not willing to waive those conditions.
Yeah, I agree.
So I can speak to that. Based on last night's Conservation Commission meeting, we are looking hard at the backyard of Lot 4 to limit the yard and pull it outside of the 100-foot buffer. What the waiver allowed us to do is move that lot about 20 feet north. We're still maintaining a right-of-way that will allow for 22 feet of pavement, curbing on both sides, sidewalk on one side, and the cul-de-sac at the end. So we only shrunk the right-of-way enough to reflect a waiver of a sidewalk on one side. So on Lot 4, we need to shrink the backyard. As for the outflow, that is something that we can now look at as a part of our stormwater redesign. And in hearing kind of the commentary and potential concern about PFAS, or potentially there not being a concern about infiltration on this site, we can look at moving the outflow as well. We would shift it east, where topographically we can provide the daylight grade to provide relief to the underground system. So that waiver for sidewalk on one side and the waiver of right-of-way width is still facilitating no impact, and it would be reflected on the next plan.
I'm still not 100% comfortable in waiving the right-of-way when we're having so many issues with the same type of waiver, however it may have happened on Hildreth itself. So I still get reservations about that.
Well, we haven't granted any waiver. All we've done is
No,
had
I
a
know.
straw poll that we would consider doing that, given X, Y, and Z. So it seems to me we have to see about X, Y, and Z, but we are still maintaining the authority to not grant that waiver. I think
Did we
everyone,
do a straw poll, though?
yeah, we did last time.
I don't remember.
You voted against it.
Okay, 'cause I was 6 hours ahead, so maybe I was there and I voted. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I mean, I agree with Chris. But, I mean, I'm not opposed to seeing what happens with the next rendition of plans before making a determination. I also feel like the Phase 1 and the hydrogeologic peer review are going to be informative to us.
Very.
With regards to our willingness to grant these waivers.
Should we open up to the public now?
What's that?
Should we open up to public?
Yeah.
Good evening, board members. My name is William Harvey. I reside at 36 Bartlett Street in Chelmsford, and I also own a two-family that's a legal abutter to this property. It's located at 91-93 Billerica Road. So I'm here, and I have standing to speak regarding this project. So, as many of you know, I am a real estate attorney. I know the zoning extremely well in Chelmsford, as I try and look at numerous parcels of land and how to figure out how to get use out of it, especially a single-family lot or even a two-family lot. So maybe this went over your head or the general public's head, but it certainly didn't go over my head. So I noticed that you have an updated plan, and the updated plan perceives to show a proposed 3 duplexes and a single-family dwelling. But I immediately noticed, and it doesn't make any financial sense or reasoning to me whatsoever as a developer on why you would actually move an old, dilapidated house and put it as it sits on that property. And my perception is this, is that I immediately noticed there's no notation on Lot 4 that there'll be a deed restriction, that'll be a single-family dwelling. So therefore, let's just say tonight that you approve this plan, and it shows single-family dwelling. Well, this board would have absolutely no standing, or anybody, or any of the neighbors thereafter, when the developer, or even a person that wants to buy a lot, this is zoned RC, zone 2 family, it meets all the setbacks, and therefore it's legal to build the 2-family dwelling. However, if you put a deed restriction that it'll be a single-family dwelling prior to acceptance by the board, then that would cover the statements made to this board that it would be a single family. So that's something I would strongly encourage, even though, as I stated, I think right from the beginning, that based on my knowledge of this land and extensive research, that this property is only good for 3 lots, and that's what it is. It's a 3-lot subdivision, and I believe that's something that the neighbors would be happy with. But I wanted to raise that to you with regards to the so-called single-family dwelling that can easily be changed to a duplex. And I had a project on 101 Mill Road that I bought from the Swim and Tennis Club, where I built 4 single-family homes. It's a beautiful, beautiful development. However, you might not know that that land is zoned RC, 2-family, where I possibly could have made a plan showing single-family dwellings, got it approved by this board, and then 6 months later, just go right down to the building department and pull building permits for duplexes, because it's zoned RC, it meets all the setbacks, and that's it. However, part of the deal with the town is that I had a deed restriction that was placed on that property prior to my purchase. And the deed restriction stated that only single-family dwellings could be built on that land. So that's why you have single-family dwellings. So if that has to be questioned, I think a lot needs to be questioned in this development. I think somebody's trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Marassi, 15 Plum Street. Thank you. First of all, I believe Ms. Tonini was right. There was a straw poll last week, but I think it was just on the sidewalk, being on one side. You were close to doing a straw poll on the road width, but never actually did it. That's my recollection, at least, if you want to look back at it. After the public comment, I think some of you might have changed your mind. So we just heard a little bit about the right of a property owner to widen the road, and I think that all made sense. The only thing I wasn't sure about is the property owner piece. As far as I'm aware, Property Possible is not a property owner on Hildreth Street, so they don't have the right to do that. If they purchase the property, then maybe they could come to you with that argument, but at this point, I don't really see how they have a case to do that. If the property owner wants to do that, again, that's 2 separate issues for me. So look into that, please. Another thing I was curious about was that this is the first time I heard the word lane used to describe this new road. It was always described as a minor road before. So I would just like to hear a little bit more about how that decision was made, if it has something to do with the number of units, or what exactly is the protocol for making that change, because that was a significant difference. It went from 26 feet to a requirement of 22 feet for a minor road versus a lane. Still not meeting it with 20 feet proposed. Same thing with the right-of-way. It's 50 feet required for a minor road, only 40 for a lane, but still only being proposed as 34 feet. So I just want to make sure that that's actually right. I haven't seen anything in the proposals online that said that it was a lane. So please consider that. But like I said, still not meeting the requirements even for those, and these are minimum requirements. So I would encourage everybody to continue to ask for those. In fact, when we met on September 13th, there were 7 waivers being asked for, and many of you said that you were unlikely to grant them, and now here we are 10 months later, and I'm just wondering, what does the list look like now? Can we get a list of which of those waivers aren't being asked for anymore? I mean, they've been told that they're probably not going to get these waivers. We just keep coming back meeting after meeting. What is the new list of waivers that are being asked for? How does it compare to that original list of 7? And for example, the one about the 50-foot right-of-way wasn't even on that list. So that's a new one we're going to be adding on if they would like the right-of-way to be 34 feet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Shelley, 11 Hilder Street. The documents that the attorney gave you, are those going to be uploaded so we have an opportunity to download those also?
Yeah, those will be uploaded to the next agenda.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to talk about the waivers. I would like to ask the board, not to grant the waivers. The applicant uses the town bylaws, subdivision rules to get what they want. If the board tries to stop them from something, they basically will tell the board, and I've seen it, that they meet the town bylaws, so you can't stop them. Right now, they're asking for waivers. I'm asking you, please don't approve those waivers. Show the town residents and the people of Chelmsford that, we actually do have a say in what goes on in our town. If we start to grant waivers, where does it stop? It's 20 feet today. Is it going to be 18 feet tomorrow for the next division? So it's something we really need to consider, because once you go down that rabbit hole, it opens it up. So I'd like you just to please consider that. Thank you.
Hi. Linda Carney, 17 Hilder Street and 19 Plum. We own the corner lot diagonally across from this property. And I'm here tonight to say that although I applaud all your efforts and I really appreciate the job that you're doing, I think we missed an opportunity at the last meeting when the applicant came to you and said, could you please tell us what we need to do to make this property fly? And you carefully made him out a list verbally and said you may adjust and amend that. But what I would like to have seen and what I thought could have been appropriate would be for you to say, we would like for you to bring before this board a piece of property that's designed to meet the regulations as they are today. Because actually, that's all we're asking as residents, is to please hold people accountable to what the town requirements are. And to make a piece of property fly, meet those requirements. That's all they have to do. We shouldn't be making lists and playing back and forth. And I'm really not disappointed in this board at all. Please don't misread me. But I think we missed an opportunity last week to just simply say, bring us a plan that meets the requirements that we're asking for. It's as simple as that. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
I asked for that in the first meeting. I asked for that in the first meeting.
Good evening. Nate Montero, 4 Hildreth. I'm just trying to get a question that I can't wrap my head around. The Chelmsford Water District sent a letter on April 10th about septic systems. It uses the words significant, poses a serious threat, we cannot condone. It goes on and on about the letter. Hancock sends a letter June 20th. 2 months. There's not one mention of septic or alternative. I would like to ask the board to ask Hancock, what is going on with the septics? And what is the alternative? Have they mentioned any alternative method that clearly the Chelmsford Water District has a serious issue with? Thanks.
Good evening, Paul Wood, 16 Hill Street. I just want to touch on the variances we are possibly granting and realizing everything that affects the new potential road, lane, cul-de-sac is going to affect Hilder Street negatively if it, you've heard it all. You know all our issues. This street, I know they're talking about widening it, they're talking about, but if it's just the more you restrict that road, it's going to put more pressure on Hilder Street. It's just going to it's a fact. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Bruce McMaster, 6 Hilder Street. I'm getting coached, so. I ran track. We didn't do well with coaching. I just have a couple of quick questions. One, and Brian may be able to answer this right now. As far as I know, those duplexes on 10 Hildreth are on higher ground than my property on 6 Hildreth. The water's going to run off those roofs. He's just established that that's not a concern, that where that goes. But it's a concern to me where that goes if it's headed toward me. My wife has forwarded to you guys a video of water running down our driveway in one of the big storms. If we got it coming this way and we got it coming the other way, we're going to be under siege. So I don't know if Brian knows the answer to that question or not. Where was the water going to go from 10 Hildreth toward 6 Hildreth, or will it not? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and I appreciate the job you guys are doing.
Hi, Marcy Comtois, 24 Hilder Street. Evan, can you scroll down that just a little bit for a quick second? Nope, the other way.
Go up.
So, here is the catch basin that Mr. McMasters is talking about. That actually is not a catch basin. So water does not go into it, flow where it's supposed to go, so it does flow down his driveway into his garage and floods his property when it rains. So just so you have a reference as to what he's talking about and his concern with the duplexes that are on higher ground than his ground, and it's going to add to the flooding. My other quick questions and concerns, and I know this is not a completed plan, but with this new plan here, fire hydrants are missing. And one of the fire hydrants that was on the original plan or the last plan, or I don't know, we've seen so many of them, was now where there are 3 parking spaces. So where is that fire hydrant going to get moved to? When this was a cul-de-sac, the idea was they were going to use that for snow removal, so snow was not pushed out onto Hildreth Street, which then gets pushed down to in front of my house, and because I am officially at the dead end and it's a private way from the fire hydrant to my driveway and my neighbors at 26, they leave a nice pile, which now I'm not going to be able to get out of my yard to get up the street because I've got all this extra snow being removed there. So where on the plan are we seeing where they're going to remove snow so that it does not get pushed onto Hildreth Street? And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've gone down that rabbit hole. I've watched every board meeting over a couple of times to make sure I've had my facts straight, but there was talk about having a dumpster on this property for trash. That doesn't seem to be a possibility now with this new Hammerhead plan, or I don't know where this would go. And even just looking at the driveway of property 3 with those parking spots right there at the end of the driveway, they are going to have to pull all the way up through that hammerhead before they can turn out, because right at the end of their driveway is a parking space. Those are just some things that I had noticed on this new plan. Thank you.
Anyone else? A couple points of clarification. I just wanted to say that my list last week was not meant to be exhaustive and was not exhaustive. And about the sewer and the water letter, we share those concerns, or many of us do, but that's not our jurisdiction. That's, we have aquifer protection, so that's a way for that, and stormwater. But the actual sewer and water district is being mostly handled by the Board of Health.
Well, not necessarily. Because.
Well, the septic issue
There's a septic issue.
is total, which pertains to the water issue is Board of Health
It's aquifer protection.
and aquifer protection.
It is aquifer.
I know.
The aquifer
If they do
protection-
not want it near a Zone 1, they don't want it near a Zone 1. They just said that in the letter.
The
We
aquifer,
haven't heard.
the aquifer protection overlay zoning district allows Title V systems by right. So it's not a zoning matter. Remember, your aquifer protection in this particular case is going to be stormwater. So the Board of Health is going to, at some point, need to review the Title V applications that have been submitted. And they'll have to make a decision.
Not Brandon Canatina? He has no say in it?
He provides, as I understand the Board of Health process, the Water District provides input into the Board of Health process.
Board of Health is the decision maker.
So
Okay,
it's,
this letter that he sent us should have went directly to the Board of Health, not us, because it's confusing me.
that letter is a distraction at this point. I don't know how else to put it. It doesn't reference any peer reviews, it doesn't reference what methodology was used to make their conclusions. The Board of Health is actively peer reviewing the hydrogeologic report that the Water District assisted with the methodology. So that peer review is not even done. So I don't know how any town board or committee, never mind an elected board, would issue a memo like that.
That was confused me.
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, I think the
To me,
board,
aquifer protection is aquifer protection, simple as that.
none of this is as straightforward as it, the regulations are pertinent. The regulations, the law needs to be understood and applied. And as I understand Title V, if it complies, it's presumed to protect aquifers and groundwater if it complies with the state law. So the board, this is why I keep telling the board, you guys should focus on your jurisdiction and let the Board of Health focus on their jurisdiction. Because trying to intertwine them is you know, you'll get the information. When the Board of Health process is done, or the peer reviews are done, you'll get that information.
Right.
Some of that information may be permanent, relevant, and pertinent to you, and much of it may not be.
Yeah.
So residents that have a concern should go to the Board of Health meeting.
Yeah, that's, because that process is actively undergoing.
We have another member of the public. We didn't.
It just, nothing to do with it's to do with the project tonight. Paul Wood, 16 Oak Street. I know they're potentially coming back with a more complete plan the end of next month. Is that going to include what they're considering for Hilder Street? And we talked about sidewalks widening. Is that part of their presentation that night? That's going to be part two? Is just one?
I would assume so.
Okay. I don't. Yeah.
I guess.
Sure.
So based on based on the conversation that we had 2 weeks ago, and the board outlined a lot of the concerns that they had, there was a desire to see a plan of the Hildreth Street widening. We are working on that. We want to get title out of the way to prove that we have rights to do what we need to do on Hildreth, that's what is being requested of us. So at the next meeting, I would anticipate, as long as stormwater is generally addressed, which I think I have marching orders based on this evening's conversation, we'll be pivoting back to Hildreth street widening, and then what we're proposing for the new roadway in terms of waiver or not waiver.
Okay. Yeah, I also would like a list of the waivers that you're currently requesting to be, if you could send us that.
So if you look at the exhibit plan on the right-hand side, they have the waivers that are currently being listed.
And that hasn't changed?
No, it has not changed.
What's the date on that plan?
7/8/24. So it's the most recent plan, the one that's on there. So that right-hand side lists all the waivers.
Just on the waivers, I've said this to a couple of you, I think, via email. You have the legal right to grant waivers. Historically, for private ways, the planning board routinely granted waivers. It's good planning, it's good for the environment, and it's a Chelmsford tradition to try to keep private ways looking like glorified driveways and not town roads.
Why?
Because they don't want to overbuild roadways. They wanted to keep them like the aesthetics, the rural aesthetics of the town.
Non-complying roadway.
They're private ways.
And then we have these all over town.
And they're not problematic. They're private ways.
Until more subdivisions get added to those.
We're trying to get away from this.
You can't connect a public way. Well, what you're suggesting is that this is going to be extended, or it's going to be used as a cut-through. Like Hildreth is used as a cut-through, but it's not based upon any planning board decision. It would never receive definitive subdivision. If it had, my guess is Hildreth would have been upgraded. But Hildreth isn't going to be used as a cut-through or a thoroughfare.
Right, but Hildreth was never planned to be, just as none of these private streets are ever planned to be, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. That's my issue with granting
all I'm trying to say
waivers on
is,
private roads.
this is the first time that I've sat through hearings where the waivers are basically being politicized. I don't know how else to put it. They were routinely granted.
I don't think we're required to grant waivers.
You're
at
not
all.
required
Zero.
to, you're not required to, but history has proven that there's good reason to consider them.
Give me a reason.
But Evan, our zoning exists for a reason.
We are considering them.
I'm just trying to tell you the way it's been handled in the past by former planning boards.
Okay.
I want to make sure that the board and the public understands that the subdivision regulations are drafted with the understanding that the waivers provide flexibility on a case-by-case basis. And there's been good reasons, and plenty of reasons, as to why former planning boards have granted those waivers.
One subdivision, and what was the reason?
No, hundreds of private ways in town.
Give me one, just give me one.
I'll have to bring you the names.
Okay, well, this isn't fruitful.
We're addressing items, I just wanted to bring up one thing if I could. So I think it would be helpful for the next, since you're working on a plan, is to contact the fire department to ask them their feelings on whether or not they can navigate that hammerhead design or not, because that would be that we need to know that.
Just very quickly, our original proposal, the 6-lot subdivision, had a hammerhead turnaround that was reviewed by the fire department and okayed, but absolutely, as soon as we get the revision done, we're going to resubmit to the fire department and we'll get you an updated letter.
Hey, Brian, on the hammerhead, if that went in, the right-of-way is still, the cul-de-sac right-of-way is still there on the plans, though. It's all grass, though.
It is all
So,
grass.
I mean, we found that in other developments, the fire department will drive right up on that, if they said that.
So they're
Would have to
kind
make a
of,
turn if they needed to, but I didn't know if, so that right-of-way is still there as extension of the right-of-way.
it is.
And they're taking that into account.
So the way that we've been asked to do swept path analysis is to take the largest apparatus the town has and turn it within the right-of-way, within paved surface, to make sure that it can
Within
make the
paved.
turnout. Yep,
Okay. So not taking into account of going up on grass or anything?
correct. It has to be on the paved surface and it has to be within the right-of-way proper. So by that definition, does it have to be a circle? No, but we do need at least a T-style right-of-way at the end. Right now, we're proposing the circle because we don't know if we're going to get a waiver.
Right, okay.
And that's how we ended up doing off of Route 40, right?
Yeah.
Route 40 has a big turnaround.
It does have the circle.
Yeah.
Okay. We stuck to it.
No, it was on the, Jackson Road has the turnaround because that has multiple homes on it. The one that has the two further down, Route 40, it has a
Right, yeah.
hammerhead.
Okay. And the fire
And
department.
that has
was
4
all-
units. And the fire department was okay with that.
Okay. Again, I don't think we're going to make any determinations this evening, so I would like a motion
You have it to continue?
till the 28th.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, I guess the public hearing remains open, so continue the public hearing.
I'll second that.
That's to August.
28th?
Yeah.
Continue to, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Mike?
Aye.
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Paul? Anita?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, next up, we have liaison updates. Does anyone have any liaison updates? I didn't have a chance to watch Concom.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yep, this is Joel. I can kind of give you a Concom update.
That's a good start.
Sorta, kinda?
I'll watch it, but I
Sort
just
of,
didn't
kind
get to it.
of. I tried to represent Chris as best as I could, and
I'm sure you did a fine
I
job.
questioned his priorities about being in Italy versus visiting Concom. But, you know, we each make our life choices. They had elections. Carl was reelected as the chair, and so they'll be continuing sort of in the same leadership structure that they had before. And also, as Moran Goudreau described, they were there to discuss their project with the commission, and the commission largely was expressing a desire for them to be completely out of their jurisdiction, so to, you know, modify the lots such that they were not within 100 feet of any resource area. So what exactly, you know, they do with that, I don't know, but it was just interesting to hear them sort of drive that as an important point for them. And the rest of it, I this is where the sort of comes into play because I didn't watch the rest of it, so.
Oh, that's okay.
And then as far as the Board of Health goes, that was an interesting meeting also. Basically, I think you already know, it was been said tonight already what they said there, which was the 2 things on Hildreth that we're concerned about or following are in peer review, and that they are going to have a hearing their next meeting, which will not be the first Monday in August, but it will be the second Monday because of vacations, people on vacations. And in general, you know, I think those are the main things that we were tracking. There were some general discussions as well. One of the questions that Richard Day asked that I thought was an interesting question, and that is, you know, what was the source of the what is the source of the sewer policy in the sense of, you know, only not allowing residential, so forth and so on? You know, by what authority was that obtained? Was that through, you know, town meeting? Was that by dictate of, you know, group or whatever? And I didn't actually know, so I thought that was an interesting question.
It was the select board.
Was it, who was it?
It's through, it was adopted through regulation of the DPW. In
Okay, through a DPW
consultation with the select board.
Okay. So I can mention that to him if he doesn't find out before I see him.
So, do they have any way to waiver that for specific?
There are waiver provisions. If the Board of Health deems it a public health and safety issue,
Like
then it,
Zone 1 aquifer?
yeah, that's an example, right. Then I believe there's provisions where connections can be allowed.
So that's Board of Health then? Because that might be an interesting subject to bring up.
I
with them.
I don't know if the provision is, I believe the provision needs to be within the DPW regulations. I don't know if they're actually in there or not.
Okay, that would be an interesting question, because it definitely, the Board of Health was very interested in having a conversation with the DPW about how all that works. Because they're concerned about septic.
They haven't completed their review yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that's obviously something of interest to us.
But they do have the report, they have the study, we've seen that, right?
It hasn't been completed, I don't think.
The board's peer review has not been completed yet.
And then there was also, I'm trying to think if there was something else, but then it was interesting because, and this isn't anything official, but one of the board members, Dr. Michael, I don't know exactly how to say his name, but he reported that on vacation in, I think it was in the Yucatan or somewhere in Mexico, and apparently there was an aquifer underneath this area where he was visiting, and people there, you know, they have indoor pools, and when they get tired of the water in the pool, they just pull the plug and it just drains into the aquifer, and then they have a pump that pumps from the aquifer back into their pool. And he said that he was in somebody's kitchen and they could actually see at one point, at like 8 feet down, there was a pool of water there, and that was the aquifer. So that was kind of fascinating. Interesting things you learn when you attend the Board of Health. So that's it.
Were there a lot of people there at the meeting?
Well, if you consider one to be a lot, yes.
I guess I went to the busiest one they ever had.
Three?
Yeah.
No, it was a full room. It was
Yeah,
a full room. It was pretty full.
Well, I haven't had that since the Great Chicken Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it makes for an intimate moment with a board, you know, when you're the only other person there, and you get a chance to
Yeah, there's some good people.
talk about some things. They're
Doctor's a
very
pretty nice
committed to what they're doing, and they're very competent.
Yeah.
And also, I might add that Donna Greenwood has been promoted to be the health director. Sue Rosa retired. So
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Any other liaison updates?
I'm sorry. There was a meeting of the master plan committee. I had to miss it. It's turned out that my schedule's changed around, and so I don't know what we're going to do about that. And you were there, I suspect.
I was there, pretty routine. At your August meeting, there will be an agenda item for the board to review its recommendations to provide a status report to the September Master Plan Implementation Committee. So I'll get that circulated so people can begin to think about it.
Okay.
And I'll be attending the Zoning Board of Appeals representing the Planning Board tomorrow night. So I don't have a report yet, but I will at the next meeting.
I think I have a Center Village tomorrow night.
We do.
Yeah, you do. I heard about it.
Everybody knows. Okay, we had talked 2 meetings ago about, we voted on the zoning priorities to tackle, and Joel, you were not there, so we didn't get your vote. So Mike Walsh is going to take your personal vote.
Yeah, so we need your vote. Joel, do you remember that handout that we gave?
I get to vote?
Yes. All right, so I will list.
Wait a minute.
On our priorities to undertake as a board.
It's going to take me a minute just to wrap my head around that one.
All right, so.
The other thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is, when is the sun ever going to set behind Chris? It's like, where are you?
It's the middle of the night.
Anyway.
It's already set.
He wants to go. He wants to go to bed. All right, so one was, this is for listing zoning updates and projects that we want to address this year as a group, right, brainstorming? So there was 11 items, and we all voted on, so the supermajority. So I'll read all 11, and then you can tell me what your, or do you want me to just go by the top 4 that everyone voted on, and you?
Yeah, do the top one.
Right. So top one, number 1 was, which was number 4, the 129 overlay, also 110. Allow or incentivize retail, commercial on the ground floor and housing above. We have a tie for second, which is, was item number 2, encourage areas not at the best use, as i.e. the Radisson and the mall area. The also item that was tied, number 2, was Kate's Corner, the Lockheed Martin, to remove them from IA. So that's the top 3 items that we had. And then item number, which was a close fourth, had 3 votes, was to look at the River Neck priority areas where there's conflicts. Do you want me to read any of the other ones?
No, I mean, I'm actually really interested in the area that would involve the 110 and the 129.
Okay.
Because of Chelmsford laws on that sort of thing, which I think are areas would be really good to try to see to what degree we can, address those things. But,
all right, so that will
the
be.
others all sound good too, so I'm happy with any of those.
We asked for 3 votes.
We asked for 3, so your second and third, would you still encourage the 2 of the Radisson and the mall area and then the Kate's Corner? Or would you prefer to head towards River Neck?
I actually am a little reluctant to go to the River Neck, so I'll just say I'm not going to vote for that one, only because I think we want to sort of see how the ZBA thing shakes out as well.
Okay.
I think it's better to address the zoning when something is not volatile, and or unstable, so to speak. So I think I'd rather let that settle down.
All right, good. So you're going to endorse what the rest of the board has voted on, so.
Yay, I got 3 votes. That's
Thank
great.
you. That's great. You want that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I think that,
We have a couple of minutes to approve.
oh yeah, we did have the minutes to
I
approve.
did read 'em.
I read them as well. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes.
Take a
All
motion?
right, move to approve the
Wait, should we
minute-
see,
well,
Chris, did you have any corrections?
612 and 626.
Okay, 6:12. okay.
None.
Okay.
Yeah, move to approve the minutes of 6:12.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chris and Anita, so it's unanimous?
And move to approve the minutes of 6:26.
Second?
So moved both of those by Mike Raisbeck, seconded by John. All in favor,
Aye.
including
Aye.
Anita and Chris, it's unanimous?
So the next meeting's on the 28th of August?
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, we got almost a vacation here.
Unless you want to do a work session to do some zoning work.
Chris will be traveling
Yeah.
somewhere, so. He needs to be here.
Okay.
Motion
Enjoy
to
your
adjourn?
trip, Chris.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thank you for joining. Anita, thank you
You
for
guys
joining
are-
last time.
You guys are.
This was the sunset tonight.
Oh, nice. That was pretty.
We can't see it right now, but we saw it earlier, I think.
You can't see it now?
Oh, now we
should
can.
see it
Is that
now.
really the sunset behind you? No, we can see it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that was the sunset picture I took tonight at dinner.
Fantastic. 6 hours ago.
One of the interesting things about being on Zoom is
We adjourned?
you actually at one point are behind the audience.
Are we
You never
adjourned
get
right
that
now?
view when you're sitting at the table,
Are we adjourned?
It's really kind of strange.
I moved
to
to
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Second, aye.
All right, all in favor?